Janice Stevenson, and this is Bethel Today. This is the show that's sponsored by the Bethel Democratic Town Committee, and today we're going to be talking with State Representative Jason Bartlett about how the session of the General Assembly kind of wrapped up this year, also things that are happening politically this summer, and what his plans are for the next session. Hello, Jason. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Janice. Great to be here again.
Well, thank you. It's been nice to have you back again. We did this once before, not too long ago.
Are you all comfortable in your new role now?
Some days.
Okay,
Some
good.
days.
Well, I'll try
We'll
not
see.
to make you uncomfortable.
Oh, good. All right, so let's start out with a little bit about what's been going on for you. You have announced that you are running for re-election, I understand.
I have. Yeah, we had our convention about 3 weeks ago now.
Good.
Trying to raise some money and qualify that for Citizens Elections Program, which is the public financing of campaigns now to keep the special interest money out of everybody's campaign coffers and the lobbyists and the PAC money and stuff. So this is a kind of a clean way of running elections. This is my second time participating. And, I think it's a pretty good system, especially for state reps and the state senators in terms of how it's worked so far.
Good, good.
So
that's neat. I think just to mention that when things are happening with our Democratic candidates in the area, that we do have, or we can have, links to their information on the Bethel Today website so that you can get information about how you can participate and contribute so that the candidates can get that CEP funding, and I think that's an important thing. Anything happening with that? I know that endorsements start to roll in over the summer, that kind of thing. Have you gotten any of that sort of feedback yet from organizations?
Well, it is early. I was endorsed by the American Federation of Teachers for my work on education. Also received the Working Families endorsement, so I'll be on 2 lines this year. So, they slowly but surely are coming in. What I'm, I think, most proud of right now is I received the Tip of the Cap Award from CONCAN, which is a nonprofit which has done a lot of education reform. And today is actually the day that the new laws are taking effect, July 1st. And the bill that I had a major part of in writing is law today. And so earlier this week I received an award from CONCAN recognizing all my work in terms of education reform here in the state of Connecticut. So that'll be a major part of my platform, major part of my record that I'm running on. And, we'll go from there.
Okay. Now, you're also involved in some other political activities, right? I think you're involved with the Secretary of State race in some way. Is that correct?
Yeah, a lot of our constitutional officers are kind of moving around. Dick Blumenthal is running for the United States Senate, so that's an open seat. George Jepson's running there. And Nancy Wyman is running with Dan Malloy for lieutenant governor, so we have a contest for controller. I'm involved in the Secretary of the State's race this year. I'm supporting Jerry Garcia, not from the Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia, but our own Connecticut's own Jerry Garcia, and not the ice cream either. But this Jerry is probably the most progressive Democrat running for Secretary of the State in terms of his platform and his issues. Something I've, in Bethel we pay a lot of attention to GAE, the GAE committee, because of the minor parties and our overwhelming number that we have here in town. So I've always gotten a lot of good ideas in terms of election reforms, and have actually done a bill in terms of election reform my freshman year. Jerry is proposing to do early voting by mail, much like Oregon does and Florida does. It's new for us, but it's very 21st century.
Sure.
We have only Tuesdays that we can vote. And Jerry's feeling is that if we could vote over the course of a week, more people would have the opportunity to vote in the state of Connecticut. So we have our commuters that get on the train and have to go into the city and may not make it back. I think they would make more use of that instead of having to lie to get an absentee ballot or not really sure if I'm going to be here election day or not, and then they don't have the opportunity to vote. We have single moms or single dads that work 2 jobs and also have kids and that kind of thing. So we make it very difficult because you have one day, and although it's from 6 to 8 o'clock, doesn't always work out.
Sure.
And I think that our numbers have been, quite low. Most municipalities experience voter turnout in the 20 percentile, some 30 percentile. You're very active in local politics. It's very difficult to get people to get out and vote.
Sure.
But if we expanded those opportunities and really allowed people to vote over the course of a week, you still have the traditional election day, but just kind of allowing people to vote. A lot of those folks that are commuters would probably take advantage of that. And I think that that's good for the Democratic Party. I think that's good for democracy in general. And Jerry is the only person who's really spearheading and championing that issue. And I'm glad that he is. And I think that, it's a big reason why I've decided to support him and to try to get him a victory on August 10th. That's the primary this
Okay. And
this
how
year.
many people are in that race?
Just the two.
Race?
Just the two.
Okay.
A colleague of mine who's been a career politician for 17 years, who I'm not supporting because I don't really think that that's where we're at as a constituency, is to reward career politicians with higher office. I think where people are at are, how do we empower the electorate and get some fresh and new ideas, and have a passion. People who have a passion for the office are going to do things a little differently, and that's why Jerry Garcia is the right person. Right now, Connecticut's going to go over a cliff. There's a $3 billion deficit. And to reward some of these career politicians for the state of our economy right now is really not where people are, whether you're Republican or Democrat. I mean, it's been true in both parties. So Garcia is a fresh face who's a small business person, who's actually managed a department, who has an MBA from Yale. And he has been a politician in the sense that he was an alderman in New Haven, and he put 5 years into that, but he hasn't made it a career. And I think that those are some of the folks that we need to integrate into the Democratic Party as we go forward. And some of our great constitutional officers who've been serving us well kind of move on to some other things. Jerry's the future. So I'm very excited to be supporting him.
Good. Now, are you just supporting him, or are you more actively involved in that campaign in any way?
Well, I'm his #1 strategist, and pretty much helping him develop his platform and kind of going out there and getting him votes like I did for Hillary Clinton before him in Connecticut. So hopefully my help won't hurt and will help. So my friends in Danbury and Bethel, I hope that you'll support him in the primary.
Okay. All right then. And that's August the 10th is the primary. And that's actually, the primary is happening for both parties. Is that correct? It's any primarying that's
correct.
on.
That's correct.
And
it'll have the gubernatorial primary with Lamont and Malloy. As well that day. So, the most important thing is that we elect a Democrat in the end.
Right.
And I've supported both Lamont and Malloy in the past. I think they're both excellent candidates. I've tipped my hat to Lamont in terms of an endorsement, but I'd be pretty happy with either, and I think both can beat Tom Foley or Mike Fedeli on the Republican side. So it's going to be an exciting day, and I just hope that as the Democratic Party unites around the winners.
Whoever it is,
right?
Sure, absolutely. So then that is then going to take us into next year. So what's up and coming, do you think, in the next session of the General Assembly?
Well, we'll have a new governor, and I think that that's the most important. And even if whoever it is, having an executive that is going to engage is going to be very, very important, because we will have probably a $3 billion deficit staring in our face the first year. It's going to require re-engineering government, streamlining, cutting down on some departments, and thinking differently. And I'm excited to just have somebody that we can work with and partner with, because in the past there hasn't been a whole lot of collaboration from the beginning of the session to the end with the executive branch and the legislative branch. So it's really a new opportunity, and the first thing that we're going to have to do is address our deficit and try to do that in a way that still spurs some economic growth here in the state of Connecticut and spurs job growth. So we did a major jobs bill this past session, but I think we're going to have to still do some things going forward, because I still think that we're all feeling quite a bit of pain out there. Yeah. The real estate market is pretty still flat, and new jobs aren't really appearing here. They're still disappearing. So we've got to keep a very good economic climate. We've got to maintain, keep taxes low, and in some places, quite frankly, cut taxes and rein in some spending. So it's not going to be easy, but it's something that I'm committed to working with the governor, whoever that is. I'm committed to working with them, and those are my objectives, and hopefully theirs too. Education, we're going to continue. We have an opportunity right now to get the Race to the Top money, and I think education reform will continue to be a major area that I'm interested in. Sure. And then on the public health side, I'll have some new initiatives in terms of public health in the next session.
What are you looking at in terms of public health and health care in general?
Well, one of my issues has been Lyme disease.
Sure.
And we passed landmark legislation protecting physicians and doctors who practice trying to treat chronic Lyme. And there's actually a case going on right now where they're going after a Lyme doctor in Connecticut, trying to take away his license because he has always treated chronic Lyme patients. And there's such a thing called the Medical Examining Board.
Okay.
And they sanction doctors. And the entire process of looking at physicians and charging them and then taking away their license or any kind of sanctions against them is done through the Medical Examining Board and the Department of Public Health. And there's been no transparency in that area. And I've done about a year's worth of investigation of the Medical Examining Board. We've looked at doctors in Ridgefield and in Stanford who artificially inseminated their own patients, and the Medical Examining Board gave them no sanctions. We've looked at other physicians who've committed, in my eyes, real crimes, and they've never been sanctioned, or they paid a $10,000 fine and got off. And this particular doctor has never had a malpractice suit against him and has never had a patient complain about the standard of care that they've received, and yet the Department of Public Health and the Medical Examining Board have gone after him and prosecuted him. So there is an entire area of reform that I will be making some recommendations on, to have more transparency as to how they make the decisions that they do, to get patient advocates to be a part of the process, so that it's not just physicians overseeing physicians, but they're consumer groups and patient advocates that are part of the process. So there's that's a huge area, and it's going to probably be a fairly big bill that I'll be putting forward. The other part of what I see going forward is we're going to have to integrate the federal legislation, the health care legislation that came through. So we will probably take the sustenance bill that we passed, which actually takes all of the Connecticut pools, the employees, the state employees, Medicaid, Medicare, Husky, and also look at the municipalities and create a larger pool and create an exchange off of that, because part of the federal legislation was having exchanges that would have people who, say, lost their jobs now and now
Sure.
don't have insurance to be able to buy through an exchange through the state. And we don't really have a plan that kind of incorporates the federal legislation. So we'll have to come up with some mechanisms here in the state of Connecticut so that we can take advantage of the federal legislation and the federal dollars that are going to be, available to us in 6 months or less. So that'll be a major piece of legislation, I believe, as well.
Yep. Okay. When we were talking a little bit before the show started, you talked a little bit about sort of your record in office, and I'd like you to kind of recap that and share that with me, because I thought it sounded very good. You went back and actually looked at older shows, I guess you mentioned, and so tell me what it was that you discovered when you looked at that.
I was looking at this particular show, and I just felt really proud after I watched the show, because I had said that I was going to raise the age to drop out from 16 and try to get it to 18.
And have you done that?
And we did do that,
Okay.
and that was a major effort. I had to petition out the bill, and it was a big fight. So we were able to get it to 17. So next year, kids won't be able to drop out of school or withdraw from school until they're 17 years old. And we talked about reforming adult education, and we had some reforms in adult education. We also talked, other education initiatives, we just did in the education reform. So I was like, wow, I said that, and I actually got out there and worked on those issues. And I also had talked about the Lyme disease.
Sure.
That people were only able to get 4 weeks of antibiotics for Lyme, and that a number of constituents had approached me, and I wanted to write some legislation on Lyme disease and patient and doctor protection. And we got that through my first session back. So I was just kind of excited that some of the things that I actually said I did. So. I think it's going to be tough for my opponent, at least, to pick apart my record that way, because I definitely have worked hard at advancing some of these agenda items.
Sure.
The one thing that I think still hangs out there is the Terre Haute property. And now that we have Matt Knickerbocker as the first selectman, I'm going to really be pushing him to make something happen with Danbury. I think that's, if there's one thing that I would like to get finished, it would be getting the bond money that we put in my freshman year, which is $2 million.
That's still available.
It's still there,
Wow.
and every year I fight for it. So I fought to get it in, and our former selectman Burke fought me very hard not to allow it to happen in the first place. And then every year the Republicans have gone after that money, and we go through these press releases back and forth, and the money's not there, and then I have to, the money is there, and then the governor's going to get rid of the money, and it's just been a battle. And it's the right thing to do, is to make open space up there. And if not, that's fine. If the town of Bethel doesn't want the $2 million, doesn't want to make it open space, then this is the year to tell me that that's not what you want to do with the money, and I will take the money and try to give it to others that could make good use of it.
Sure.
But I think the taxpayers would appreciate having $2 million.
Yeah, probably.
I think that they would appreciate the land being permanently open space. I think Danbury would appreciate to do the same thing, but it's up to Bethel, and this will be the last year that I fight to keep it in. So it'll be about 4 years, and we need to have a plan there. I also fought very hard. I got $500,000 on the table still for Bethel for downtown economic development. So we have the library, which I believe we're pretty close to raising the money to finish. And really what needs to happen is we need to have a plan, and Matt has assured me that the different townspeople and town government employees are working on a plan to apply for the $500,000 right after this election. Bethel should be knocking at the door to get $500,000 for our downtown. The money is there. It's been there for 3 years, and there's no plan to access the money.
Right.
And I've used as much political clout as I can to keep the money there for the town of Bethel. We were able to access $300,000, which we did for the teen center and we did for the library, but we still had $5 that I had put aside for Bethel for whatever else, whether we were going to do parking, we could do a nice greenway or something behind between School Street and Greenwood Avenue there, that kind of corridor. Or something else. I mean, it's completely up to the townspeople.
Right, but there has to be a plan before they can go to the state and ask for the money.
Yeah, well, obviously the state is, to some extent, over-indebted. We have a big, the bonds are getting cut. We cut out about $100 million in bonding that was on the table so that the Yukon Health Center could get their money, and they could build a new hospital and a new medical center for Yukon, which I supported. But in doing that, we had to cut out $100 million. And, my projects are on the table. So at some point, those projects have to move, and they're beginning to age.
Right.
So, I think the next governor is going to say, I want to do something in New Haven or somewhere else. And, at some point, Bethel. Right. So we have to be prepared as a municipality, and I'm willing to work with, the townspeople in Knickerbocker, and Mr. Straighten and whoever else, and get it done.
How unusual is it actually to have that kind of appropriation done and then just sit there? Is that normal or is that unusual?
A lot of the bonding, because the legislature actually puts the money there, and then it's the governor who has to release it. So we have a Republican governor, and obviously I'm a Democrat. So, so that happens where sometimes the money doesn't get released. The reason why this money wasn't released, though, was because we had a Republican first selectman who basically said he didn't want the money.
Right.
And that's really why the money has not been released to us. Once the town of Bethel says we want the money, we have a plan to use it, it's much easier to actually, get the money. So, if people remember, the former first selectman said, I don't want the money for the teen center and the library.
Right.
He literally came out and said, I don't want the money. He took some heat for it, but he didn't want it. And we had to kind of force it on the town to do good,
Right.
So we don't want that experience anymore.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just will be left behind, and the big cities will get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
My job is to fight for our town, and that's what I try to do.
Yeah. Well, sounds like you've pretty much been doing that for a while now.
Yeah, and I hope that people will reward and give me one more opportunity to serve. The website is jason2010.net.
Right.
And so we'll have information up there on my record and how you can give. And I just appreciate the support that I've received thus far, and I'm very humbled by it, and just look forward to going back to Hartford and continue to work for the people.
Okay, that's great. Now, will you be at our clam bake the end of July?
And when is that?
I think it's going to be, and I'm sitting here like, it's the last Sunday in July.
Okay.
And I believe that's July 25th. And I think it's from noon until whenever.
4
exactly.
usually.
4 or 5, exactly. And actually, that's an interesting thing. Will Jerry Garcia be there?
Jerry Garcia will be there. I believe our gubernatorial candidates will be there.
That would be Dan Malloy and Ned Lamont.
Dick Blumenthal will probably come. He always comes, so we look forward to seeing him. And George Jepson, who's running for Attorney General. Mm-hmm. And we have a new probate judge candidate.
Right.
and I think his name is Tim Hollihan, but I apologize, Judge, if I got that wrong. But he's from Newtown, and I've met him, and he's an excellent person, candidate, full of integrity. So we look to get him some exposure. We have a whole new probate system we cut back.
Right.
So we're in with Newtown, Ridgefield, and Reading.
And the actual court is going to be in Bethel
It
proper.
will be in Bethel, and I'm sure you'll do a show on it.
I'm sure I will. I don't know anything about it yet, but I will.
But that was one of the examples of actually cutting government
Right.
and streamlining.
Regionalization.
Right. And we saved, we cut their budget in half.
Wow.
And took them out of a deficit.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
It's going to be good.
All right. Well, thank you so much,
Thank you,
Representative
Janice.
Bartlett, for coming in and visiting with us. Again, we do have the Democratic Clam Bake for the town of Bethel. That is going to be the last Sunday in July, which I believe is the 25th. I'm a bad person. I really ought to know that off the top of my head. And again, it's an excellent opportunity
It's
to...
only $25, I think, this year.
Well, actually, for a family, I think it's a family, 2 parents and up to 3 kids, it's $50. So that is a huge change, a really positive change, I think. And it is $25 a piece for adults. All are welcome, and again, this year in particular, with all of the statewide offices in play, or the vast majority actually in play, it's an excellent opportunity to come out and actually meet some of the different candidates to get an impression so that you can make an informed decision on August the 10th, which is the day of the primary. And we are coming to the end here. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our guest today was Representative Bartlett of the 2nd District, and we are Bethel Today, sponsored by the Bethel Democratic Town Committee. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.